Hello, Booktube. Hello, friends. Welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth. And today I'd like to talk to you about some middle grade books. More specifically, the Sunshine State Young Reader Award finalists for last school year. Yeah, I'm a little bit late this time, but these are going to be the 6th to 8th grade reading list for the school year 2021-2022. I took a little bit longer to get them read this time, and I'm still determined, though, that since I have gone to the work of reading the books, that I want to go ahead and do a wrap-up. Going forward, I think, though, that I may just do an overview video of the books, like for the current school year, and not impose it on myself to read them all, mainly because I used to do this because I was volunteering at my daughter's middle school, and I was helping the librarian, and I was writing questions for Book Bowl and doing all the things that she liked to do for that activity. And then when COVID hit, that did away with Book Bowl, and since then she has retired, so I don't really have the motivation to read them all. And I looked at this year's list, and there's just several that I'm just not interested in, but I will still do an overview video. And honestly, if I did read them all, I'm sure I wouldn't be disappointed. I have them all back here behind me. There's 15 on the list, and I'm going to show them to you in three groups. The ones that I rated 3 stars, the ones I rated 4 stars, and the ones that I rated 5 stars. Now, I might give you a little spoiler here, because I do have my favorite one there on the end, but I did rate 5 of them 5 stars, and 2 of them 3 stars, and all the rest 4 stars. So let me take down the ones that are 3 stars. I'll start with those, and then we'll end with the ones that I rated 5 stars. By the way, this is the 7th year in a row that I've been reading the Sunshine State books for 6th to 8th grade. That first year, I did an overview video before I had ever read all of them. I had read a few of them at the time of that video, and I will link my whole playlist at the end of the video on the end screen. And if you are interested in going back and seeing any of the Sunshine State books that I have read and reviewed over the years, I would certainly welcome that. So that first year, because I had not read all of them at the time we did the overview video, I did individual reviews of all of the books as I read them. And that year I read all of the Sunshine State books for 3rd to 5th grade. And to this day, those 3rd to 5th grade reviews are some of my most watched videos. So really, for views' sake, I should go now and just start reading the 3rd to 5th grade books. But I may not do either going forward. But like I said earlier, I think I will at least give you an overview so that I can introduce you to the books that are being recommended currently for our Florida middle schoolers. So for last year's list, the 2 that I rated 3 stars are these 2 right here. Now, this one I don't even remember. And Me and Banksy, it's by Tanya, Lloyd, Kai, and for some reason I rated it 3 stars at the time I read it, so it must have not blown me away. It's about a school where I believe it's a private school, and it's full of security cameras, and for some reason, some unknown reason, videos start showing up on the internet that have been filmed on those security cameras, and they're inappropriate. Not horrific, just inappropriate, like one girl picking her nose and things like that. And I can't even remember how it ended. I even looked back at the last couple of chapters just to try to refresh myself, and it wasn't ringing any bells. So it wasn't a memorable book. I don't think I hated it, but or I would have rated it lower, but it still just didn't stick with me. The other one that I rated 3 stars is Clean Getaway by Nick Stone. Now, I went back and looked at my Goodreads review of this one, and it reminded me that I felt like this book perpetuated racial stereotypes rather than combat them. And is that really what we want to do? I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure that some people could read between the lines and get a lesson from it, but I don't think your average middle schooler is going to get the message that perhaps the author is really trying to convey. And yeah, there is kind of a moral at the end, but the pathway getting to that, I thought was just full of racial stereotypes, and it just made me not enjoy the book as much as I had hoped to. All right, the books that I rated 4 stars are not in any certain order, but this is A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontornvat. I think of all of them, this is probably the one that I enjoyed the least, and mainly because I couldn't really categorize it. Not that I needed to, but it was labeled a fantasy book, but really the fantasy elements didn't come into play until right at the very end. And so that was a little bit of a disappointment. The book overall wasn't bad. It was about a boy who grew up in a prison, or he was born in a prison and escaped because children who were born in prison are considered criminals just as much as their parents are. And of course, it's no fault of their own. So this book would make a good book club discussion. There were lots of things brought up that I think would be enjoyable to discuss, but just didn't blow me away, although there were some definite thought-provoking moments. This is Coop Knows the Scoop by Taryn Souders. I had really high hopes for this, and yet it was really not very memorable. The premise is that a body was discovered in a playground, like buried under a playground. So it's a cold case, and I just didn't find that it really blew me away like other middle grade mysteries that I've read, like the Moe and Dale mysteries and things like that. Maybe it's because the characters themselves were not as memorable or humorous as Moe and Dale, but I don't know why I'm comparing it to Moe and Dale, except that that's, to me, is my standard of middle grade mystery. But anyway, again, not bad. I rated it 4 stars. It just didn't blow me away. This one I thought was very good and very thought-provoking. This is The Unsung Hero of Birdsong USA by Brenda Woods. This takes place in probably the early 1950s or late 1940s after World War II. It's about a boy who almost has an accident on his bicycle. He's almost hit by a car. He's saved by a African-American gentleman who nobody really knows much about. He, I think, is fairly new in town, and it turns out that he is a World War II veteran and war hero, but because of the racial tension and racism in his town, he really does not feel comfortable talking about that or letting it be known that he is a war hero, because that would provoke resentment from some of the Caucasian veterans who were there in that town, and resent the fact that, a black man could have done something heroic. So it definitely has a lot of good points, very eye-opening, and I thought it was definitely well worth reading. The next one is Jinxed by Amy McCulloch. This is a fantasy or science fiction book about a futuristic world where cell phones have sort of morphed into pets, and everyone has a robotic pet that functions as their personal computer and cell phone. They're called Bakus, or Baku, B-A-K-U. Anyway, different people have different levels of clearance to own specific levels of Baku, and our main character here has not achieved whatever she's supposed to achieve for a really high level Baku, but she somehow finds one that has been discarded in a junk heap, and because she's a techie and can fix just about anything, she is able to take this Baku, which is shaped like a cat, and fix it, basically. Well, there is some mystery and intrigue involving this particular Baku. It apparently should not have been discarded. Perhaps it was even supposed to be hidden. I don't know. There was some mystery involving it, and I thought the book was very exciting. It was intense, and I did enjoy it a lot. And it ended on a huge cliffhanger. I definitely want to read more. I'm not sure if it's a trilogy or if it's going to stop there. I don't remember, but I know that when I finished the book, I was like, whoa. And thankfully, chapter 1 of the next book is in the book, and I was able to read that and go, okay, that at least gets me through the crisis. But yeah, I definitely want to read more from this series, and I definitely enjoyed it. The next one I want to talk about that I rated 4 stars is Becoming Muhammad Ali. It's by James Patterson and Kwame Alexander. Talk about 2 powerhouse authors. This I did enjoy. It is written in verse, and I found it very interesting. It didn't blow me away, but it was a very intriguing and interesting story about young Cassius Clay, who of course became Muhammad Ali. And it's definitely worth picking up, especially if you like biographical books, if you like books written in verse, and if you like either of these authors, then I would recommend picking it up. The next one, I don't remember a lot about the ending, but I do remember really enjoying it. And I think this is one of the more popular, more well-known books on this list. This is The Miscalculations of Lightning Girl by Stacy McAnulty. And it's about a girl who was struck by lightning as a young girl, and ever since then she has been a math genius. So she has completed everything she needs to complete as far as school, and she's only a middle grade age student. And before her grandmother, I believe is her guardian, before her grandmother will allow her to go to college, because she's always been homeschooled, she tells her that she has to go to middle school for 1 year and make a friend. So it goes from there. I do remember it being a very enjoyable book, and I would recommend picking it up. The next one I want to talk about, you've heard me speak about recently because I've been reading this trilogy. This is Bloom by Kenneth Oppel. This is a science fiction / horror book. This first book, Bloom, there are seed pods that are raining down out of the sky and burying themselves into the ground and turning into man-eating plants. So yeah, the series centers around 3 kids, and each of them have their own unique traits. One of them has been allergic to water her whole life, and yet when this happens, the rain that occurs during this phenomenon, she is not allergic to. The other 2 also have specific things that they have been dealing with in their lives. And as these supernatural occurrences start happening, these 3 kids start changing. One of them starts growing a tail and claws and things like that. Another one starts growing wings, and it's just very unique and very interesting. So the second book I just finished, actually, in the month of August. It's called Hatch. And then the third book I have checked out right now from the library. It's called Thrive. I have not started it yet at this point. But if you like that sort of book, then you might find it very interesting. And so I wouldn't say that it's a trilogy that I am just absolutely in love with, but it is enjoyable, and I don't regret reading book 2, and I am looking forward to book 3. The next one is Charlie Thorne and the Last Equation by Stuart Gibbs. This is book 1 in the Charlie Thorne series. Stuart Gibbs has written another series that's been on my radar that I have not started yet called Spy Kids. I think Storm from Storm Reads has read several different books and series by Stuart Gibbs. And this one, though, I really did enjoy. I definitely would read more from this series. It's about a young girl named Charlie Thorne, and she is basically a young scientist. She's very interested in Einstein, and this book centers around Einstein. She and other people are trying to crack a code or some kind of clue that Einstein left behind that was his last equation, which could be world changing, and it is a fun adventure story, and I definitely enjoyed it and would for sure pick up some more from the Charlie Thorne series. Okay, now let's talk about the books that I rated 5 stars. This one is called Bouncing Back by Scott Ostler. This was a very good story about a boy who was a basketball player and was in an accident which confined him to a wheelchair. And so now that he has recovered from the accident, his family has encouraged him to join a wheelchair basketball team. At first, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't think that he would enjoy it, and what's the point, and all of that. But it is just a very good story about facing obstacles and powering through them. There's also a wonderful story that's kind of a mystery story in a way, because the gym where they are practicing is about to be condemned because there's an underhanded scheme going on by someone in the city government who wants to do away with this building for their own profit. He figures, oh, it's just insignificant that a wheelchair basketball team is using the gym. We can deal with that, and we're just gonna, steamroll over them and do what we want. So it is the story of adversity in more ways than one, and I just thought it was a great book. I really, really enjoyed it. This next one is called Wildfire by Rodman Philbrick. I thought this was a very intense, very good story. It's a survival story about some kids caught in a wildfire. They were at summer camp, and somehow they got separated from the other evacuees and are on foot trying to survive a wildfire in a forest. And I thought it was just super intense, really good. I definitely enjoyed it and would recommend it. The next one is When Stars Are Scattered by Victoria Jamieson and Omar Mohammed. Now, this is a graphic novel. The story is Omar Mohammed's real-life story, and the artwork is by Victoria Jamieson, and the story was told to her by Omar Mohammed. And not only did I read this graphic novel, I also listened to the full cast audio at the same time. I can't pick a favorite. The book is fantastic. The audiobook is fantastic. It was a great reading experience, and I would definitely recommend either or both. So this is a story about Omar Mohammed and his younger brother. They were refugees from Somalia and living in a refugee camp in Kenya as young boys. And Omar's younger brother was disabled and had a learning disability, and therefore it was not believed that he could go to school. And yet Omar had an opportunity to go to school, but felt obligated to be there for his brother. So they do have a guardian that they were assigned to, because they don't know where their own mother is. They don't know if she has been able to survive, if she's in another camp somewhere. They don't know. And it goes from there. It is just such a heartwarming story. Just knowing that it is a true story makes it all that much more enjoyable to read, and I just definitely would recommend picking this up. This is a National Book Award finalist, and it definitely deserves it. I picked this one up next to last because this is the one that was holding up this video. This is not on audio to my knowledge, and I kept trying to get to it. I've had it checked out from the library multiple times, and I finally just had to open it up and start reading it despite all the other things that were going on in my life. And I flew through it in like 3 or 4 days, which for me, that is flying through a book. A lot of people could sit down and read this in a day or a couple hours, but I'm not that fast of a reader. But this is a futuristic story. I think I mentioned in my wrap-up video that it reminds me a little bit, it's like the middle grade version of Wool by Hugh Howey, because it is dystopian futuristic in that there has been a pandemic where a lot of people have died, and so the survivors have basically sequestered themselves into these massive apartment buildings, and everything is being run by drones. Everything, all the food outside is grown by drones and brought in. No one goes outside, and the story starts out with a young girl who was born there. She's never been outside and doesn't know she doesn't know life any differently than what she's, experiencing. She does know that, in history there was a pandemic and a virus, and that's why everyone is living inside, and they all believe that, it's still it's still viral outside, that, it's still not safe to go out. She gets a package that is addressed to someone else's name, but it was sent to her address. And she talks to both of her parents about it, and they're like, no, that's not possible. That just doesn't happen. Well, it did happen. And so she figures out a way to get out through the delivery tube to go and take this package to the right person, because it's medicine. And she is studying to be a doctor. Her mother is a doctor, and she knows, based on the kind of medicine it is, that it's important for her to get it to this person. And it goes from there. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic, and I would recommend it. So I saved my favorite for last, and I think this is my favorite because it has to do with a teacher. I come from a family of educators. My parents were both teachers. My sister is a retired teacher. My brother and I both have worked in the extension service. I only worked in it for a little while, whereas he made a full career of it. But we're a family of educators. I am currently a substitute teacher, and this book just really hit home to me because I grew up in a family of teachers. And this is about a man who has really lost his zeal for teaching. He's ready to retire. He's ready to take early retirement because he has just lost the spark. And as maybe a punishment, I guess, he is assigned a class that are considered the unteachables. It's a self-contained class that have just been thrown in that class because nobody can do anything with them, and their situations seem hopeless, so why bother, that kind of situation. And it's an amazing story. I just thought it was fantastic. So if you like teacher stories, then you definitely want to pick this up. It's a very inspiring story, and spoiler alert, by the time we get to the end, he doesn't want to retire. I definitely recommend picking this up. This is The Unteachables by Gordon Korman. And while we're talking about Gordon Korman, I would also recommend Schooled, which is about a boy who has been homeschooled all the way up to middle school and now is being propelled into public middle school. And all that involves. So this is my favorite book from the list of Sunshine State book picks for 2021-2022. Have you read any of these, or do you plan to? Are any of them on your TBR? If so, let me know. But for now, that's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my playlist if you want to see what the other books were that were chosen in earlier years. Hopefully before the end of the year, I will do a video on the current school year's books. I might go ahead and listen to a few of them that are available on audio so that I can at least tell you a little bit about them. But for now, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.